I'm super, super, super excited to have these ladies on the stage. Ever since I seen the social media posts, I was like, that's gonna be one of my panels this year. And look at God when you put things out in motion, it happens for you. But super excited to have them to hear their perspective, but also want to take this time to truly like level set, right? Like let's level set the climate that we're in, the tragedy that we all have experienced. I don't want to have. I almost canceled the event or canceled this because I didn't want to seem like that. I didn't want to continue the normalcy of us just going through tragedy and just keeping on. So I want to take this moment. It doesn't have to be a moment of silence because he did survive. Thank God. But I want to take this moment to ensure that everybody in this room knows that this is what's at the front of our minds, right? As we go through our day-to-day, as we connect with one another, as we celebrate with one another, it's still something that impacts us on a day. Okay, I'm about to get on the soapbox, but I'm not. Thank you, Lord. Again, thank you all for coming. Again, Rebuild Honestly is just a conversation. We'll love it if you guys identify questions that you want to ask. Please ask those questions. If you want to engage in any way, do that. Be yourself. But yeah, just don't let it be the one and only time that you do it. We here every month, every third Thursday, or every third Wednesday. We're here. The next conversation is going to be a really great conversation. It's safe social spaces for Black professionals in Kansas City. My guy Josh, he'll be on that panel. We'll have Corey from Black and Brown. We'll also have Joe Black, who'll be talking about his space that he's created, and it'll be moderated by Malicia, from the city. So it'll be a really great conversation, but keep in touch with us. I'm gonna kick it over to Shay. I do got a giveaway, but I'm still trying to figure out how I'm gonna give it away.
Can you tease what's in the giveaway? You can't give it too much.
So Sean, we got them brands. You know what I'm saying? Okay. No, I'm just kidding. Casey Current has Casey Current has blessed us with a giveaway. It's 4 tickets. It's a scarf. And what's GM stand for? Is that a water bottle? A tumbler. And a tumbler. Ooh. All right. So I might just be walking around with a little box. So if you got a business card, just throw your business card in the box. And before the end of the day, before everybody leaves out, I'll announce who the winner is, and we'll go from there. So that's what I got at the top of my head. Appreciate you guys for that. But without further ado, I'm going to let Shay go ahead and take it.
All right. You guys excited? All right. There we go. We might have to give that to the highest energy in the building. I like that. I know it's a gloomy Wednesday, but we're going to have to turn this thing around and get some great energy. So I'm not really used to sitting down, so I'm gonna just have to stand a little bit. So has anybody ever heard of Hot 103 Jams by chance? Okay, there we go. Okay, I love it. So he introduced me as Shay Perry. That's my day-to-day name. That's the IRS name. But by night, I go by Deanna Hustle on Hot 103 Jams, where I spend my weeknights and my weekends. So I appreciate the panel that we have. And I appreciate also Craig for just inviting me on this, because I'm not necessarily into sports like these phenomenal women are, but I will cross you up on a Tuesday at Hy-Vee Arena. Just know about that, okay? So what I will do, we have some, like I mentioned, some phenomenal panelists. I want them to each start off with the introduction about themselves, and we're gonna make our way down that line, and then we'll go ahead and get into the questions, and then we will open it up for some Q&A for you all to participate. Does that sound good? There we go. All right, Kiana, please.
Yeah, Kiana Sinks, Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, Marketing and Community Partnerships.
Yes, clap it up. Each introduction, you have to clap it up.
Hey everybody, my name is Angel McGee. I'm Director of Club Relations for the Players Alliance.
Oh, you brought the whole family out, huh?
I'm DePriest. I am the Executive Director of Community Relations for the Kansas City Current, who's building the first purpose-built stadium for a women's professional team right here in Kansas City. So,
dope.
My name is Chioma Atanmo. I am the Director of Community Impact for Sporting Kansas City.
Let's clap it up. Yeah. Phenomenal Black women in sports. That's just perfect. So My first question to set this thing off applies for each and every one of you. So everyone doesn't have to answer. If you feel led, though, feel free to grab that mic and get things started. Now, I know you guys have mentioned the roles that you're in right now, but of course you weren't always in those roles. So I would love to not just talk about how you maybe got your career started, but what are some go-to personal practices that have helped you stay grounded throughout your career? I mean, it's a lot that you're juggling. I know those roles that you all play are big. So what are some things that have just helped you stay like, okay, this is me, I'm gonna stay true to myself? Any takers first?
Yes, I'll be the one. I think for me personally, and it came within the last few years, strictly speaking, but knowing your worth. It's really easy in the sports world, and I know all of these women can attest to it, but sports is one of the most underpaid industries, which a lot of you don't know. And a lot of the people that are doing and keeping their careers in sports, they're doing it simply because they love the passion of it, right? We love what we do. We love the impact that we have in our communities and our cities, being able to go out and talking with people, having that effect and bringing it back to our workplace. But there comes a time where you put in so much work and you put in so much value that you need to be compensated as much. And I think learning that as far as not being egotistical about it, but keeping it real as women and as Black women, we are the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to a professional career in this country. And we're just gonna keep it a buck here. So for a lot of us, we have to work twice as hard. We have to go above and beyond. We have to scoot out the chairs for other people to sit at the table while we stand around the room. So for me, it's been a journey of knowing your worth, knowing your value, and applying it as such.
That was great, Angel. Just to back up a little bit on the journey, because I think the journey is so important. If you know me, you know I rep being from Detroit, 313, what up, though? Born and raised, and when you come from a place like Detroit, you have to really have a lot of grit, a lot of hustle, a lot of resilience, and that's what the city is made of, and I carry those things with me. So growing up in that environment, sport was always a safe haven for me. Sport was always my community away from home. When I was dealing with trauma or whatever was happening, sport was that safe place for me. And so through that, I had an opportunity through sport to get a scholarship to Pittsburgh State University, where I played college basketball and became the first person in my family to graduate from college, something that I'm very, very proud of, earning my undergrad and my master's. And throughout sport, you learn these lessons, right, that can take you when you get into your corporate career. Angel talked about it. A lot of times, we are the only ones in those rooms, and you have to deal with code switching. You have to deal with, it's a predominantly white male sport, so you have to deal with men who typically have not been in a situation where they deal with Black women, and they have all of these biases about you. So you have to deal with that. And so one way that I self-care is by surrounding myself with good people, like the people on this panel, a lot of people out here in the audience. And I always like to say I'm here for two reasons: God's grace and mercy, and just the power of sport. So when I have the opportunity just to sit and be quiet, Kendrick, the Commodores, and Anita Baker, like those my go-to. Like music, I could put the music on, I can escape from everything, the lyrics, and if you love music, you get what I'm saying. So it doesn't matter what field you're in, you have that opportunity to just escape from everything. So those are my self-care tips, and then just making sure you have grace for yourself and knowing that you're not going to arrive perfectly at every space when you do have those moments, those highs and those lows.
And I wanted to touch on just the journey of getting through sports. So my parents are immigrants from Nigeria. I'm sure if you guys, I'm sure if you know of any Nigerians, there's that joke where they say you're either a doctor, engineer, lawyer, or a failure, or a disappointment, because those are the only careers where in our culture are deemed successful. So my dad was also a pastor, and growing up, sports wasn't something that women in my family did, because we just had very I would say, traditional roles, and we were in church multiple times a week. And when I talk with other people about my story, I said that like I figured out that sports was maybe a way for me to like not attend church multiple times a week. And soccer became a safe haven for me because my teammates became some of my best friends. I was able to discover the world in a new way. And my goal was to play in college and to get a scholarship, but I injured my knee. And my whole identity was wrapped up in playing sports. And so when that was taken away from me, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I started off with an internship in the city that I went to school at the University of Arizona in Tucson. And going back to your point of sports is not a lucrative career. So my internships, you know, you're working for free, you're doing multiple jobs, and people think it's sexy to say you work for a sports team. And so there's all this glitz and glam that comes with it. But we truly are in this for, you know, to make an impact in our community. We love what we do. We love being able to amplify the voices of our players. A lot of kids can share, they have a favorite athlete, they have a favorite sports moment. And so sports plays such a powerful role, and even just soccer specifically, it's the most diverse sport in the world. So you see players on our team right now at Sporting, we have over 15 different countries represented on our team. And I think that's so beautiful to have so many different players that, you know, are able to share in terms of playing the sport that they love. So I know we all have unique stories with how we came to sports, but I just wanted to share that piece because it was a long 13 years. So.
Well, that was great. Thank you guys for answering that question. Appreciate that. So we kind of touched on this a little bit. I feel like each and every one of you had an answer that kind of touched on what you do to be grounded. So this might play on this next question, but what has been a constant barrier? It's a little bit of a generic question, but what has been a constant barrier you have seen that has really just hindered you from getting to maybe where you want to go, or it did at one point, or things that you've seen other women in your position face when it comes to being in sports?
Yeah, I'll say it's age. I think a lot of us have that in common up here. I mean, we talk a lot about how there's this stigma, and I think it's not just in sports, but just in society in general, that these traditions and these norms that you have to be at a certain level to progress in your career, or you have to be a certain age, or you can't be, you know, a senior VP at 38, you know, you should wait until your 40s. Just all these different, you know, I think barriers and just stereotypes that really is the opposite of what we all say we want, which is, you know, breaking traditions, breaking barriers, moving forward, providing other opportunities, being innovative, being creative. And so how can we do that if we're constantly comparing, you know, a lot of ourselves to a lot of the traditions that have already happened, and that's really been stagnant and not innovative? And so I think for us, I would say really age, and myself included, I think that's probably one of the things that I have really been able to look at, not just in my career, but just what's allowed me to kind of move forward and be able to progress, you know, and see successes, because I think that it's very challenging. You know, you don't really choose what you experience, you just go through life. And if your qualifications and your career affords you opportunities that maybe perhaps a mentor who was not fortunate enough to experience those things, why should you not be able to progress and have a lot of other opportunities that maybe they weren't afforded to? Society's different, things are faster, things are more efficient, and so how we handle those opportunities are up to us, of course, and our success and our failures. But I do think age is one of those barriers, and it still is. There's pros and cons.
Curious, before you pass that mic, I have another question for you, not to put you on the spot, but mentioning age, I think that is definitely important because that is a thing. I'm 26 and I definitely feel that. So it's like, how do you figure out a way to prove, look, I might be this age, but I'm bringing you some qualities versus, okay, this opportunity is not for me and I should just back off, because if they don't see my worth, I'm not finna prove it to them. So how do you kind of figure out what I'm gonna go for versus what I'm gonna just back off and just let happen?
For me, I think it's just being consistent and just time. I mean, I think it's being true to who you are, not changing for others. I think that it's very difficult to allow patience to be the key consistent factor as you progress forward. I remember my days, I see Coach Key being running track and really, you know, practicing block starts. That's not a skill you do overnight. It takes perfection, it takes practice. But I think for me, just being consistent and, really understanding that people are going to think what they're going to think and people are going to say what they're going to say, but being you and showing up in spaces and continuing to show with your actions and not your words who you are, I think hopefully over time they will understand. And if they don't, they don't. And so I think that's my philosophy on how I've been able to really try the best that I can to show people that this is who I am and this is whose I am. Because really, we only know one person matters, and that's the guy above for me. But I think over time, it's just being consistent in who you are, and that only speaks for your actions. And I'm saying that with obviously knowing I'm not perfect. I make mistakes just like everyone else. But I think the key is consistency.
Love that answer.
We have these, we get up here and we have these conversations, whether it's Black in tech, Black in sports, Black in whatever. And I can just, if I'm being vulnerable and just being real, those inequities are so real. There are times when I am the only one at the table in a meeting, and it is exhausting. It is exhausting. But I have so much hope. If you see, and I'll just talk about KC Current just because of what we're building and talking about the investment that has been put into women's sport. And I'm talking about the intentional investment from bringing in a president from the Lakers. And you have to understand, if you were a vice president with the Lakers, which was a global brand, what the mission and vision has to be for you to leave that. I mean, you've been there for 10 years. And then to have a general counsel who's a woman, to have a VP who's a woman. We do have some men. I don't want to make it seem like we don't have any men around there, but when you invest in women, it's proven, attendance goes up, financial revenue goes up, the critical thinking that a woman just brings is important, is crucial. And when you just think about, even just in 2022, right, attendance has been up, viewership. I think one of the NCAA games, the viewership was higher than a men's game. You see more sponsorship opportunities in the NWSL specifically. Our media rights are about to expire. So I'm interested in what's going to happen with that and where the money is. We just added 2 additional teams to the league as well. So I'm hopeful. But we have to make sure that we pay homage to the people that came before us. And then we have a responsibility as well, being up on this stage, to just continue to be that voice for the people that are coming up behind us. So I'm very hopeful where we are is women in sports, and Black women in sports in particular. Y'all can clap.
Yeah.
Y'all ain't got to clap every time, though.
I know.
Y'all got to clap every time.
I did want to add, in regards to often being the only one in the room, I feel like there's a lot of pressure that we always have to do everything right the first time. We don't get the luxury to fail. And so even when I started off as an internship, I was the only Black person. And then when I moved up in the ranks, I was the only woman at times. And so there's this pressure to overperform and do things twice as good because you don't want to ruin it for the next person coming up behind you. So sometimes it takes the fun out of, trying to explore a new position because you're in your head all the time of how do they perceive me? How do I react if I'm upset? If I say it this way, I can't get too upset. I can't be the angry Black. All these things. And so I think now as I've gotten older, I've been more confident in how I show up every day. But one of the things that has helped me is building a tribe of mentors and a tribe of people that I joke that I have a CRM of people that I work with, because I think it's so important to know at least 1 or 2 people in each department that you have a good relationship with, because I use that as armor in a sense. If I have a bad morning and I don't say good morning to you, oh, she got an attitude today. No, she's nice. She's a good person. It's not you. So those are things that I'm constantly thinking about just being in my profession. So I just think we're in constant crisis analysis of how we show up every day, and we don't want to ruin it for the next person. But we have a responsibility to continue to use our platform and to elevate and amplify people that are coming up behind us. But as we continue to grow in our roles, it's not easy. In 2023, we're still the only Black people and the only women in rooms, and so that needs to change. I think social media has done a great job with amplifying a lot of the diversity in the sports space, but it is still not diverse the way we want it to. So don't let social media fool you thinking that, oh, there's all these rooms full of Black people. It's like there's a Black person in 200 different teams across all these different leagues. So there's still so much work that we have to do.
That was perfect. You read my mind because that's transitioned us into the next question of what you all would change if you did have that magic wand, and kind of what would be the route to fix it, because we know diversity doesn't mean that things are going to get better. You got to have inclusion. You got to have every single piece that comes with that. So being in the space, you guys are seeing it day to day. If you had that magic wand and you can change something about the sports industry as a whole, what would it be, and how do you think what would be the route to get that done?
If you do your research, look at all your ownership groups across all the major sports. What are you gonna see? You gonna see you? Are you gonna see you?
What is ownership groups kind of?
Yes. So ownership groups, if you guys are not in the world of sports, of course, they are your ownership. Who owns your teams? There's families that will never give up their reins on sports teams. And then you have ownership groups that are comprised of, similar to the Royals ownership group, where there's a principal owner in John Sherman, but there's also 20 other owners alongside. But I say that, and I don't mean it in a shady way, but I say that because in the work that I do specifically with the Players Alliance in advocating and representing for Black players within Major League Baseball, we are always at the table with either general managers or owners, and you never see me, and you hardly ever see a woman, and you don't see a person of color on top of that. So when we're talking about these realms of equity, we're doing what we can when we're talking about in the front offices, at the team level, when we're providing opportunities in the front office. So what your front office looks like, an internship and pathways, but it can only go so far. And those who have the power can actually make that access route so much bigger than what it really is. It's understanding what the lens of equity looks like. There's a difference in diversity. There's a difference in equality. You have to understand what the metric of equity is about. And if you're not understanding what the metric of equity looks like as far as it spans across the table, and in this particular realm for us in sports, it's going to be the same thing over and over. So when we're talking about breaking news of Magic Johnson joining an ownership group with the Washington Commanders, and you're like, oh, that's just another, it's like, no, because now it's another Black man in the room that has normally not been seen before. But it's something that has to be owned, though, by ownership groups when you're talking about these teams. And I can expand on so many other ways, but my sisters up here have their own experience. But I know from just previously and most recently, that has been the biggest room that I have been in, and looking at owners and understanding, like, I see the same person in 50 screens right now, and nobody looks like me. So it has to start from the top. It has to be owned from the top, and it has to be accepted as well. This world is changing. We're seeing it day by day. It's not going to stay the same. And for some, that can feel like a threat. That's another topic for another day. But that's where it can start in a lot of realms when you're talking sports and teams.
Clap it up. Thank you, Pastor. You ate on that one.
I mean, I ain't got nothing to say after that.
I'll add one more thing from the flip side is paid internships and paying people more. We all know that a lot of the intern pool look the same, and that's where they start, and then they make their way up. So if we're not able to pay people enough to work that full-time job and just focus on that, I talked about how I had 3 different jobs when I was doing my internship. That shouldn't be the reality for everybody, and that was how I was able to make ends meet. But if we're going to college credit, that is still necessary, but the intern pool still looks the same. It's very white, and that is who continues to move up the system. So we need to pay people. We need to pay people more so they stay in the sports industry, because a lot of people exit the industry after the manager level. So as you get to the director and above, it is still very white. And so we need to pay people enough to make a living wage.
No, I was just gonna say at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, I feel like in my current role and day to day, I see historically women who have set the foundation for ownership, who played on the best teams that there were that operated in the Negro Leagues when they were in formation, and they didn't take no for an answer. They competed against the best. They proved their worth. They showed us that it's doable. And so I think connecting the past to the present and then seeing the opportunity of ownership is feasible, it's doable. It's just a matter about how do we go about doing that and applying the rich history of people who look like us, and then how does that apply today? Because a lot of unfortunately a lot of then is starting to look a whole lot like now. And I think going back to what you were implying, Angel, figuring out what that piece of equity looks like today, and how do we as people of color apply that action piece where we do have say in owning and not being at the table and implementing somebody else's vision, dream, doing their work. And so it is doable, and that's what inspires me every day, because you don't see the trotter side of Black people. You see us in our best. And that's really inspiring for me. So I'm not on the player side of it, but I am on the history side of it. And I learn a lot every day, and it's inspiring because I'm like, yeah, I can do this. This is achievable.
Just clap it up. So to the professional that's like, man, I want to get into sports, but I don't really know what's the way for me to do that. As far as maybe resource groups, I know you guys or a sisterhood in and of yourself. But what would be some advice to someone that is interested to getting into the sports world and wants to climb that totem pole? What would you say to them on getting access?
So I didn't start in sports. I played college basketball, but growing up, nobody ever told me that a position like the one I have existed. Only thing I thought about was playing basketball. I thought I was going to go to the WNBA. And so when I graduated, I worked with young people. I worked at the Boys and Girls Club for 10 years. And even then, I still didn't think about being in professional sports. So, funny story, my first conversation when I was talking about this job was with Angel. I reached out to Angel. And sometimes that's all it is. If you have questions, if you are curious, you got to reach out. You know, we don't know unless you reach out. When I then got the job, being in professional sports is different than nonprofit. I'm asking for money. Now I'm getting to give away these owners billions of dollars. So I had to reach out to Chioma and say, what strategies are you putting in place? There's a ton of nonprofits that are doing great work here in Kansas City, and it's hard to say no. Like, how do you say no? How are you helping your players develop off of the field? And so that's my piece of advice, because my journey was a little bit different than theirs. They came up differently in sports, but I always had that heart. And I think I had to take that first step to reach out to Angel and say, what is it like? You know, what are some things that I'm going to come up against? What are the challenges? And she was just like open, and championing another woman. And so that was very important. So that's my piece of advice. I know you all's story is a little bit different.
I'll just say really quick, with internships with me, like I started off in match day operations, and it wasn't the most glamorous job, but I think when I tell high school students or college students, I think it's important to understand what you don't like versus what you like, because when you go into a sports position, like I'm sure you don't even anticipate what your week is going to look like. Your week is so different every day. When we get questions of like, what's a typical day like for you? I'm like, is it Monday, Tuesday? Every day is different. And so I would say just go after positions, even if it doesn't look exactly like what you want. And then once you're in, it's easier to kind of work your way up the ranks or move to different departments. But getting in is the hardest part. So it's important to know someone. Be mindful of the relationships that you keep. Be mindful of what you post on social media, because people look that up. Even though you're private, you ain't private. So it's just remembered, like people are always watching your presence. It's important to have really good relationships in the industry, and just go for the position. If you don't like it, at least you have that understanding that that position is not for you. I had 4 different roles within my organization in Arizona before I got to sporting, and they all individually taught me different things. I built different relationships with people, but I I don't regret any of that work that I did. So.
No, DP and Chioma touched on it really good, but for me, I get about 10 requests per week on LinkedIn from just aspiring college students, sports professionals, asking just for 15, 20 minutes of my time to chat. And usually I can grant it, although I live the life I live. I don't know how I have the time, but I realized that because I needed that when I was coming up. And I'm always surprised 9 times out of 10 when I do talk to a student or I talk to an up and coming sports professional trying to break into the industry, their first words are, "Thank you so much because you're the first person that responded back to me." And people don't understand how relationships and what that means for that person. And from someone like me, I got it straight out the mud. I'm a first generation college graduate. I also had a daughter while I was in college. And coming out of college from a minority statistic, I'm not supposed to make it, technically. But coming out, I had the grind in me that I knew. First off, I've known since I was 6th grade. I thought I was gonna play in the WNBA too, but that did not happen. But I knew I wanted to work in sports. I loved it so much for my entire life. And even when I graduated college, my plan, what I thought I was going to do, did not go according to plan. It's funny how God works. And at one point in time, that led me to, at the time, the Chiefs and the Royals working part-time. And between 2014 and 2016, I had 5 part-time jobs between both organizations. And for me, it wasn't so much about, oh my God, you're working. I was so hungry. I just wanted to grind. I wanted that one in. Just take a chance on me. I'm showing you. I'm showing up every day. I'm starting up. I'm by day I'm at Arrowhead. By night I'm at Kaufman. Like I was so hungry. I was so passionate. And that caused me to be the person that I am. I was able to network within both organizations, which has led me to where I am today. And so for me, networking, like, shoot your shot. Shoot your shot. There's nothing that can happen other than it's just gonna hit the ground. And truthfully, and I tell that to a lot of students, and they're just like, thank you, because you keep it so real. And I'm like, look, if you live the life I live, but if you went through the journey I went through, that's what's helping me to be able to speak and to be that person today. For all of my sisters up here, we always have these in-depth conversations. DP talks about it. Like, as soon as she got into the role, we talked. I was just upfront on what sports was and what that industry looked like and what she could expect and just answering all the questions. But it's not so much about me. I'm not a gatekeeper. I want to see you win. I want to see the next steps above. And usually I'm getting questions from students and professionals of color. Yes, what can I do for you? Who can I recommend? What reference do you need? Who are you talking to? What job did you apply for? What team? I know somebody. Let me call. Like, I'm going through the circle because it's not about me. It's really not about me. It's about helping the next person, because at the table, what am I going to do by myself? Nothing. I need them. I need y'all. Like, I need the whole room has to make the circle go round. So that's the perspective that I take in talking to the next person. Shoot your shot, network. Don't be afraid to reach out. Cold call, whatever you have to do, somebody's gonna pick up, I promise.
Amen. So it was touched on a little bit ago, social media. So I feel like we, of course, live in that day and age where you got to watch what you post. And, jobs can't find you, regardless if you change your name, you got a fake name on TikTok or whatever you have. So I'm not saying that's me. Era, you didn't hear that. Don't tell nobody. But how do you all navigate that as far as your personal beliefs? We've been having a lot of things go on this day and age on the political realm, tragedies, and those type of things can, of course, get a rise out of people that you may work with, your supervisor, or you just feeling like, I'm not too sure if I want to post this or go out on a limb to repost this. How do you navigate your personal versus your business when it comes to social media? Dang, I ain't even on there.
I don't even know how to start because we all are like all over the place. For me, it's interesting because Twitter, it's a whole beast right now, as everybody know. I'm like, what's new? Are we gonna not have our blue checks? Are we gonna have a blue check? We don't know what's going on. But it's interesting because when I took the role at the museum and then in the space of marketing, it was very evident you're not just representing yourself, you're representing a national brand, and you have to be very, very intentional about what you retweet, what you like, what you share, what you don't share. And there's been times where I've gotten a phone call or pulled in the office on that is unacceptable. We should not, like, you need to be aware. It wasn't necessarily that I did something very foul, but just being aware that maybe you could retweet that last year, this year you can't. And so, and just being sensitive to, I think as well, the balance of having a personal life. It is challenging. I mean, we've talked about that as well, feeling like we're always watched, feeling like we can't share who we are and what we do and who we hang out with. And if I'm at a bar, people are really going to think I'm an alcoholic because they saw me drink wine, and then all of a sudden my boss got a text message saying they saw me at the bar, and I'm like, well, I was just sitting and chilling. I wasn't doing anything. So I just think for me, it's always a catch-22. I'm always going back and forth, but always asking myself, am I gonna like this when I wake up tomorrow? You know, am I gonna really be able to look myself in the mirror and go to work tomorrow is kind of what I put in my head. So, and it's hard because that's our visibility, that's our roles. You know, we need to promote ourselves, we need to promote our organizations, at least for me, for the museum. And so I try to, you know, balance both, but it is hard. I think it's every day. You're just constantly analyzing what's postable and what's not. So
What I'll add to that is being in the community space, we're hearing stories that you guys don't even know make the news. And so from a perspective of, I wouldn't even say like from a mental health perspective, but we have to, I'll speak for myself. It's important for me to make sure that I'm putting out accurate information because I know that people are watching me, whether that's on Twitter, whether that's on Instagram, whether that's on LinkedIn. So I'm making sure that I'm doing my research before I post anything. And then having those conversations internally. I know for myself, I have to be very mindful of what I post. I hope you guys are reading between the lines here. And so I have to be consistent with being okay with how I get my message out because everybody has a different way of getting their message out. So again, I'm not from Kansas City, so I've been here for 5 years. So even if it's what's happening in Kansas City, what's happening on a national level, what's happening back in Arizona or on the West Coast, we're constantly hearing of things and people are tapping into us and asking us to amplify messages or, hey, what is your team doing on this? Hey, what is your player's perspective on this? And so when you talk about our owners looking all the same, it's how are we bringing those conversations to the table where it is, where you're able to have those dialogues. And so social media is a very tricky topic for me, but I think at the end of the day, making sure that you're posting accurate information, making sure that you have a plan of how you want to tackle certain things, whether it's internally, whether it's with your family, whether it's with your friends. But we get a lot of stuff that come through us. So that's my piece.
There's a lot that's coming out. You got AI now, AI Drake versions of songs that he didn't really do. It's just a lot of different things that you just don't know what's really true and what's not. And navigating it, as you guys have mentioned, is tricky because there's times where I've worked in different space. I used to be a nonprofit before I jumped into marketing, and I asked my supervisor, I said, hey, is this cool with what I'm posting? Just because I was just curious myself, because I spend time going into kind of like a corporate type of environment, dressing a little nice, like I'm finna sell a house, and then by night I'm hosting a Glorilla concert. So it's like, I'm just curious how you feel about me. And so I just kind of said, hey, and of course I'm at the bar grabbing a drink with my friends and all of that too, in between that. And so I just asked one of my supervisors, and she was like, girl, no, we love it. Do your thing. That's you. And DP, you talked about being your authentic self, and I think that is so important. Like, if anything you just grasp from what they just said is be true to you, because when you're not, you feel it. When you going to work knowing you holding back, oh man, it's terrible. And I've had times where I was trying to be like, oh, I'm gonna just not give them too much of me. And I couldn't do it too long. And I was like, nah, I'm gonna just have to bust out the ankle bracelet, the brooch on I'm gonna just have to be me. This ain't even normal, but it's me. And when you really just kind of live your truth, whatever that might be for you within those environments, it makes a big difference. So I appreciate you guys for sharing on that. I just had to hop on that too. So I do have a couple specific questions for each of you all based upon some of the history and some of the things you guys have mentioned today. So I'll start off with Angel, Pastor Angel. I'm gonna have to throw that in. No, let me stop. Okay. Now, since you mentioned it earlier, you've worked for both the Chiefs and the Royal teams, which is amazing and phenomenal. So has your transition to a new role has been providing you with a fresh perspective on the opportunities available within the sports industry? So how does that kind of work being in that transition role?
So I think the perspective is taking some of the reins off, being naturally authentic, which I'm so glad that was mentioned. I wanted to mention that earlier. But going where you're celebrated and not tolerated is a big one. And I think we miss that a lot in some of our areas. And that's not saying anything bad, but it's just when you're becoming aware of self and aware of talent, aware of value, you think differently, you move differently, and the perspective, it just changes with maturity, and that's just a natural thing. So for me, it's now a bigger scope. It's not just Kansas City sports. I'm now representing 30 clubs across the nation, including Canada. So it's more at the table now. There are different demographics that I'm working with. There are different issues and communities that we're dealing with across the country. So now it's taking what I have learned throughout all that time and now just assessing it from a bigger and broader level, but also showing that putting in the hard work, looking like me, you can do it too.
And the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum just released or integrated the Negro Leagues for the very first time ever in MLB The Show. So for all my gamers, huge partnership with PlayStation and Sony that they literally gives us a platform to now touch millions of kids. They're going to learn about Buck O'Neil. They're going to learn about Satchel Paige, the Kansas City Monarchs, Effa Manley, the only woman that is inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame. And so that allows us to connect and bridge the past with the present. And then also, I mean, we've touched more kids' lives more today than we have in our entire existence for 32 years. And so that's one example of the work we're doing locally in Kansas City and nationally to really provide an educational tool and not waiting for people to come to Kansas City or to come to us. We have to take that history to them. And so I'm so honored to be a small part of our greater story. But I do think, our Kansas Cityans and people of color, and hoping that a lot of our funding and a lot of our supporters grow higher and representing people who look like us. But I tell people all the time, I mean, there's only 2 national museums in Kansas City. World War I and the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum in 18th and Vine down the street. So we should feel proud about all the things that you see. I mean, there is a lot happening. There's going to be a lot more happening in the news that you guys will see. Kansas City Royals moving baseball downtown. That impacts our organization tremendously, from operations, admission tickets to marketing, the whole nine. So it's not a lot that's happening right now, but there will be a lot happening in the next 3 to 5 years with the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. But we're really excited about the growth and the visibility that we've been able to display and really promote. And I hope a lot of people in our city are very proud of that because we're championing the Negro Leagues, and we're doing it in a way that is very bold and dominant, at least since the last 3 years I've been there. And it's really been inspiring to see just in this short window how much has changed. And so we should be proud of that.
That's major. We're going to slide on down to DP. Got a question for you. All right, so given the KC Current's groundbreaking accomplishments in the sports industry, which we have touched on a little bit earlier, what opportunities do you see in day-to-day work to pave the way for other women to follow in the footsteps?
That's a great question. We had our groundbreaking for Berkeley Riverfront, where the stadium is going, in October. And the day was just like super long, running around. And at the end of the night, when everybody had gone and left, I took a chair and I sat right there on the riverfront. And I just sat in solitude and reflected for a minute about where my journey has come and I get to be part of this powerful platform. And so what's important to me is to use that platform in two ways. One, girls that are coming up, they get to see these women on the pitch, and they get to see them in a groundbreaking stadium. And I said this earlier, this is the first that's purpose-built for a women's professional team, the first, right here in Kansas City. And so I get to take young girls to the stadium. I get to take young girls up there, and they get to see there's 4 women that are in hard hats that are project managers on that site. They get to say that I don't necessarily have to be an athlete on the field, but I can still be involved in sports, right? So that's the first platform. But there's even one that's even more personal to me, my personal platform. I get to be a voice that brings up my community within community. And what I mean by that is, for Juneteenth, we were gonna do a graphic, and they wanted me to explain Juneteenth. And I reached out to Kiara first, because I said, instead of me explaining it, why don't we contract a Black graphic designer so that their visual is present in the stadium? And y'all know Kiara, she's super booked and busy, so she couldn't do it. But then I asked her, give me another one. So she gave me another one. I get to introduce DJ Dupe, who's contracted now. If you don't know DJ Dupe, Black DJ, she is gonna be having her first DJ set in the current stadium, and she's contracted for 9 games. I get to make sure that people like Jazz Crouch and Chris Good and Ruby Jeans and the Leia Center and Nieces and all these historic spots are highlighted because my voice is at the table. I get to make sure places like Porterhouse are community champions and introducing them. Like, that's my personal platform. And so when I think back to me sitting at the riverfront, one thing that I thought about is just that I am the Black woman who is part of this groundbreaking monumental moment. And so I have a responsibility, and that's a responsibility that I don't take lightly. So that's what's important to me. So those are the opportunities that I get to relish in when other people are successful. So that's just how I'm built. Like, I want to see other people eat too.
That's love. That's love. I'm happy you mentioned that, because I was definitely gonna mention the put on, what I call quote unquote put on opportunities that DP has just given, and I've been seeing the DJ Duper, Nita Johnson, Jazz,
you hosted at the training facility.
Being able to be there for the panel and speak with the players was dope. So just shout out to you, and of course all of you guys. But I know DP specifically, just being able to see, and I get on social media. On the close friends, no, I'm kidding. I get on social media, and then I'll be like, dang, there's something else with the KC Current just hitting my feed. And it's somebody I know that's doing something dope for them. I'm like, hey, the way she just linked up with so-and-so and then put them on, man, that's dope. It's love. And when you truly have a good spirit and you want to see everybody else do good because you're not trying to gatekeep, it's cool. You just gonna repost it and, put somebody else on. So that's what you're doing, and that's dope.
And lastly, I was gonna say, we building this new stadium, so I'm like, what restaurants we got in there? Like, who gonna be in there? So we need to make sure that there's some diversity in there too. So be on the lookout. It's some exciting.
Them wheels already turning. Most definitely. All right, Chioma, this question is for you. As a Black woman in a predominantly male international space that you talked about, what strategies have you employed to maintain balance and succeed in your field? And you've probably touched on it a little bit here and there, but if you can go a little bit more in depth, that'd be lovely.
Yeah, I have a very intense, I would say, morning routine, just because I think it is so important to ground yourself before you go into the workspace, knowing that you're not reflected in the workspace. So my morning routine is waking up early, meditation, prayer, making sure that I'm moving and stretching my body in some kind of way, and setting boundaries at work. It's funny because people joke and they assume that, like, maybe our jobs are easy, but I'm just like, oh, you get to do all the fun stuff. And I'm just like, I have to set boundaries constantly with my coworkers, in a sense of, you can't, when I first started off in the industry, I was first one in, last one out. I hit burnout so many times, and I'm sure all of us can attest to hitting burnout, and that is why so many people leave the sports industry. So as I began to move up, my thing was, how can I set boundaries with the life that I want to live if I want to continue to stay in this space? And so that came from whether it's my morning routine, whether it's making sure that I'm not scheduling meetings at 4 or 5 o'clock for my team to attend. I manage people, so it's making sure that, hey, are you guys using your PTO? Hey, if you're sick, please don't come into the office. Hey, if you need help on a project, if you make a mistake, please come to me before it's on fire. And so, and even when I do make a mistake, I will share with my team, this is how I messed up and this is how we're fixing it, and making sure that I'm creating a space where there is safety to mess up. And so I think, too, I have to have a team around me. I did not get here by myself, so I spoke a little bit about the mentors that helped prop me up, but it's reaching out to them and letting them know, hey, these are the areas that I'm struggling in. Here are the areas that I want to grow in. What is your advice? Not being afraid to fail publicly if that's a thing within the office. So over the past 13 years, it's been highs and lows. I almost quit the sports industry. Actually, I did leave the sports industry. I like walked out and quit, and I came back because I felt like a part of me was missing. But I knew when I came back, I wanted to make sure that I was in this for the long haul. But it was I was creating a world, or at least a space for me, that I was able to survive in. So if you are wanting to enter the sports industry, it is a grind, it is a hustle, it is not for the weak, but as you continue to move up the ranks, there are things and systems that you can put in place. There are people who may think that, oh, the fact that you leave the office at 5 o'clock, why? I'm here at 7, 8 o'clock. Good for you. That maybe that's what you have to do. And sometimes you have to do that. But that can't be my reality if I have family. I'm one of 6 kids, so I have siblings and I have a mom. My father passed away, so it's like there's things that I want to make sure that I'm able to support my friends and the ones that I love. So as you continue to move up in the ranks, regardless of whatever role that you're in, be mindful of the teams that you're managing, be mindful of the systems that you're putting in place so people feel like they can last in those spaces. And if you are feeling burnout, like, take some time off. It is okay. I made a post on Instagram, I believe, about like, it's okay to take a break from what you love. That doesn't mean that you are not committed to what you want to do. It doesn't mean that you're not doing a good job. It's okay to take a break because you need that. And as Black women, we are already dealing with a plethora of issues. So the last thing we want to do is, now we have the world on our shoulders. We're coming into work knowing, just even in the community space, we're having a fight. So it's so important for me to make sure that I'm grounding myself before I go into the office. When I come home, I'm taking inventory. How do I feel? What do I need to fix? Who do I need to check? Because if I want to continue to stay in this space, like, I need to make sure that I'm taking care of myself too. So
That's real. Let's clap it up for that one. That's a perfect drop, Mike. I want to thank each and every one of our panelists today. Can we clap it up for them for answering these phenomenal questions? There we go. So we still got that giveaway. We didn't forget about y'all.
All right. Once again, let's give them another round of applause. Thank you all so much for just taking the time to come out here and speak with us. Thank you all for taking the time to register and come out. But we got this. Y'all like, Craig, shut up. Pick the ticket real quick.
You need help?
Miss Andrea Ellis, she around? She still here? She left? All right.
Done missed the blessing.
No.
She said you gotta be here.
You gotta be in the place. Is there a Dale? All right.
Dale.
Hey. All right.
Okay, Dale.
All right, Dale. I ain't gonna lie, Dale. I thought you was a white man when I read your name, bro. I'm just gonna be honest, dog. You know what I mean? Just gonna have this is a safe space. I appreciate you. Just one last thing. I want y'all to recognize the people that are in the room, right? You got Natika over there, who leads BCF, Black Community Fund. You got DJ Q over there. You got Chris over there, my man who does insurance and financial support. You got Zeke. This is our community, right? This is our ecosystem. You know, they talked about how they leaned on each other to be able to grow. So if it takes that for a sector, what do you think it takes for the entire community? So one of those gaps that Black Excellence is truly looking to fill, or how we're going to fill that gap to kind of create more connectivity, is that we're actually coming out with a membership app, and it's called Proximity. And what Proximity allows you to do is just be more engaged with a lot of the resources that we have here in Kansas City, whether that's you growing your business, whether that's you just trying to find professional development, mental and health spaces. So over the next couple of weeks, we'll actually be rolling in a lot of our resources. But just for this crew, I'm gonna allow y'all to get, it's beta. So if you don't know what beta means shit ain't done yet. But we would like for you to get on the platform, interact with it, engage with it. We got some really, really great things that's going to come along in these next few weeks as you all see it roll out. But if you all would like the opportunity, please come up here, just scan the QR code, download the app, and let's stay connected. I appreciate y'all coming out. Thank you again.